I went to the event in Malta. That was my first Dr. Joe event. I had done my NLP practitioner training, so I'd gotten some really good tools for managing my state and my thoughts, and that's when I realized my body was in survival. And it didn't matter what I did in terms of controlling everything else, it just kept dragging me back. So that's when I started the work. Went to Malta, and I wanted to apply for a coherence healing for a gluten sensitivity. And I opened up the app, like the email link, and saw all the questions that was like, what's your diagnosis? What stage are you at? And I was just like, oh no, we're not doing this, right? No. So I didn't. And I got to Malta and I met some people, and one of them had been to several events, and she said, you just need to apply. Like, it's not you that's going to make the decision. So in that moment with her, I did the application. I got chosen for a coherence healing, and I had it. And then so that was for gluten sensitivity, and I immediately started eating gluten. Before, it would have been like, when people ask me, it's like, well, what's the gluten sensitivity like? I'm like, it's like eating barbed wire, right? So right after that, the same day, I was like a kid in a bakery because I hadn't eaten that for 10 years. I had been gluten-free. And so life was great. I came home and Christmas happened, and there's lots of opportunities to eat gluten at Christmas. So I did that. And then the same person actually said to me, I'm doing a 30-day walking meditation challenge. Will you start? Will you join it with me? And my thoughts went to, my excuses were, it's too cold. It's January in Canada, it's cold, and I'm afraid of unleashed dogs. So kind of, saw through my own excuses, and I started maybe a day or two after I'd been asked. So that was January 3rd. And kind of figured that whole part out, just kept going and, figuring out how to manage the dog thing and the cold thing. And then I started to not feel well. My body wasn't doing well at all. And it felt like the gluten, but it wasn't. It was different. So January 20th was the first time I ended up back at a doctor, and I was there 3 times that week. The diagnoses I was given in a week were bladder infection, colitis, obstructed bowel. I had blood work, urine tests, ultrasound, and x-ray, and they couldn't find out what it was. Huge amounts of pain, and I'd committed to this walking meditation challenge, so I kept doing it. And I would find that most days, by the end of the walking meditation, the pain was gone. So now, my doctor's like, we gotta get a handle on this. So they scheduled a colonoscopy for me, which I normally have every 2 years because of my family history. And my dad died of small bowel cancer early, age 71. And so I'm just doing my thing, doing the meditations. I have the colonoscopy, and I kind of get wheeled in, and my doctor, he's great, and he's like, what are you doing here? I'm not supposed to see you till October. I'm like, well, doc, here's what's happening. And he's like, okay, let me check it out. So with him, you see him after that day, like when your procedure's done before you leave, you see him. You don't have to wait for whatever results. So I see him, and he said, you're right. He said, there's something there. He said, I found ulcers in your small bowel, which is indicative of Crohn's. He said, so I biopsied, and I'll see you again shortly when I get the biopsy results. So now I'm like, well, this is interesting. I've never heard the word Crohn's in my family. Now I'm making the connection with my dad and the small bowel cancer. And so I get home, and my son asked me what happened, and I told him. And, I said, it looks like Crohn's. And he said, he's like, don't worry, Mom. Like, just wait for the biopsy. And that was the second time I heard that. And I'm like, what the hell would I wait for a freaking biopsy? Like, no, supernatural genius over here. We've already healed one thing, we can heal this. And I had gotten Blessing of the Energy Center 7 because there was days where I couldn't sit up. And so I just kept doing that, doing the healing meditations. And within 5 days, everything was gone. And I've been symptom-free ever since. And yeah.
What were the results of the biopsy?
That the ulcers were there and they were Crohn's. And it was interesting because then kind of like right when I should have been getting the biopsy results, the world went crazy with COVID. And I didn't end up getting, so there was never an appointment with my doctor, with my gastroenterologist. So he called me and he's like, you know, I have the results, I have the biopsy results, and this is what it is. And he's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm great. He's like, what? I said, I'm good. Like I didn't go into a lot of detail with him, but I said, I'm great. And he's like, awesome. I'm going to send the results to your doctor and I'll see you back in a year. I'm like, okay. And it was interesting because at the end of this was a phone call, and he just looked at me and he just said to me, just stay as happy as you are.